Hello and welcome to another fourth grade math video. This video is going to be about estimating sums and differences. Okay, here is our first example problem. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be estimating the sum by rounding each number to the nearest thousand. So sums are answers to addition problems and differences are answers to subtraction problems. So when you see the word sum, that means we're going to be adding those numbers together. But first, we're going to round each one to the nearest thousand because we're not trying to find out exactly what this is equal to. We're trying to figure out about how much this is equal to. That's why we have a wavy equal sign there. That's what that means. They're asking for about how much. Okay, so to get started, our first task is going to be to round each of these to the nearest thousands place. Okay, so to do that, we're going to rewrite each one separately. I'm going to write 618 over here. I can keep the plus in between and the 2,457 over here. So we're going to round each of these to the nearest thousand. So next, what I would do is go underline the thousands place for each of these numbers. So thousands place here and thousands place here. You may have noticed the 618 actually doesn't have any thousands, not yet, but when we round it, that might change. So usually we would underline the digit or the place value that we're rounding to. Then we would look right next to it, just to the right. If that number is 5 or more, what that means is we raise the number that we're rounding to. So since this is empty, I could put a 0 there. And since 6 is greater than 5, I could raise it up to a 1. Then what happens to the rest of the numbers is they all become zeros. So 618 rounded to the nearest thousand is 1,000. So I'm going to rewrite that, keep the plus. For the 2,457, I'm going to look right next to it. And what I see is a number 4. That is not 5 or more. So the 2 is actually going to stay the same. And then the rest of these digits would become zeros. So 0, 0, 0. So the estimate would be us adding 1,000 to 2,000, which would give us 3,000. So that means 618 plus 2,457 is about 3,000. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to estimate the sum by rounding each number to the nearest hundred this time. Okay, so I'm going to write 952 over here and 88 over here. Now I'm going to go through and underline the hundreds place. There's a 9 in the hundreds place here, and there is nothing in the hundreds place for this number. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with a 0. So back to the 952, if I look right next to it, the number next to it is 5 or more. So that means I need to raise up 9 from 9 to the next biggest number, which is 10. So that means I'm going to have 10 written here or 1,000 something. The rest of these become zeros. So that means 952 rounds up to 1,000. Even though we're rounding to the nearest hundred, there were too many hundreds. So we had to round up to 1,000. If I come up back to the 88 and I look right here, 8 is bigger than 5, or it is 5 or bigger. So this is going to get raised up to a 1, and the rest of these digits will become zeros. So this is 100. Now, to estimate the sum, I'm going to go ahead and put those together, which would give me 1,100 as my estimated answer. So estimating the sum of 952 plus 88 is about 1,100. Now, if I needed to estimate the difference of these two numbers, I would do the same thing. I would still round them just like I did. The only difference is I would subtract them. So if I was going to do this minus this, well, 1,000 minus 100 is about 900. So if we were estimating the difference would be about 900. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to estimate the sum of 5,661 plus 9,562 by rounding each number to the nearest thousand. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and round each number to the nearest thousand to start. So I'm going to rewrite 5,661 over here and 9,562 over here. Then I'm going to find the thousands place for each number. Now I'm going to go back on each number and look and see what's next to it. a 6 is next to a 5, and that is bigger than 5. It's 5 or more. So that's going to raise this up to a 6, and the rest of these will become zeros. So this rounds to 6,000 plus, now if I look next to the 9, I also see a 5. So that's going to get raised up again from a 9 to another 10. And then all three of those digits become zeros. So this becomes 10,000 when I round it. Well, if I add 6,000 and 10,000, I end up with 16,000. So 5,661 plus 9,562 is about 16,000. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to estimate the sum by rounding each number to the nearest 10,000 this time. So our place values are getting bigger, 10,000. So I'm going to write 75,832 over here, and then 40,261 over here. So I'm going to find the 10,000s place for both, right here and right here. I'm going to look next to it, and I see a 5. So that's going to be raised up to an 8, while the rest of these digits become zeros. So my answer, or my rounded amount here, would be 80,000 less. Now, if I look next to the 4, there's a 0 there. So that is definitely not 5 or more. So that 4 is going to stay the same. And then the rest of these are still zeros. So 0, and then these turn to zeros here. Okay, so if I'm adding together 80,000 and 40,000, I end up with 120,000. So that would be the estimated answer for 75,832 plus 40,261. Now, if I had to find the difference of these two numbers, I would take the same rounded amounts that I had, 80,000 here, but I would be subtracting them instead. And that's if I was being asked to find the difference. So 80,000 minus 40,000 leaves us with another 40,000. So that would be the estimate of the difference of those two numbers. Okay, here is our last example for today. We're going to estimate the sum by rounding each number to the nearest 10,000. So we're going for the 10,000s place again. So I'm going to rewrite 28,988 over here plus 27,052 over here. I'm going to find the 10,000s place for both. So that would be the 2 and the 2. If I look right next to it, 8 is definitely 5 or more. So this moves up to a 3, and the rest becomes 0. So this rounds to 30,000 less. Now I'm going to go over to the other number, and I look right next to it, and that is also 5 or more. It's a 7. So this rounds up to 3, and the rest 0. So we've got another 30,000 here. If I add those together, 30,000 and 30,000, I end up with 60,000. That would be the estimate for the sum. If I was estimating the difference between these two, I would take the same rounded numbers that I had, which were 30,000, and I would subtract 30,000. That's how we estimate the difference with subtraction. And that would actually end me with 0. So the estimate for the difference of these two numbers would be 0, while the estimate for the sum of these two numbers would be 60,000. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in another video soon.